people. Everybody go grab your tea. We're going to do our love and liberation meditation and reflection in the reverse today. We are going to eat our breakfast. We are going to take our vitamins. We are going to read this chapter first, and then we are going to do our yoga stretch because I really would like for us to release as we close out. So we're going to do it in reverse. So get everything you need. Bring everything we need. Everything we need. A few things I want to talk to you about today. Grand Rising family. Yes, we are going to have our breakfast first. I have been up since 5 a.m. Grand Rising, how are we feeling? So I wanted to, before we begin, I just wanted to sort of share, this is the season for us to really begin to take care of our health. Like we have to, the winter with this COVID shit, we have to be putting good things in our body, like good nourishment and vitamins. And so I wanted to, I don't know if you could see, I don't know if you're able to, let me see if I can lift my phone. Let me see. So, can you see? We got to get better at taking care of ourselves. Probiotics, right? Vitamin D, turmeric, multi, C, A. We got to get better at taking care of ourselves. I'm drinking a green tea, and I added Kamal tea, like a dash. It's called Badshah Kamal tea. And it gives it like a little, kick. Like a little, it has like a yummy like spice to it. We in here, yo. Drinking Obatala, mango, carrots. I love bread. I could eat bread every day. It's my weakness. Not giving it up. I like carbs with a side of my carbs and a side of extra carbs. How y'all feeling? How you waking up? How was yesterday? I knew I needed to eat before doing this reading of this chapter because we're going in. And I didn't want to read that on an empty stomach, you know? Who was here yesterday for the intro of the book that we're reading? It didn't start with you. Yo, can we talk about the hood healer real quick? I'm sending her so much love and so many prayers. Yo, yesterday, I don't know how many hours she was online yesterday because I was teaching. But what I do know is that she is opening up her platform to mentor people who are diviners, mediums, oracles, tarot readers. Yo, transparency on a whole nother motherfucking level. I woke up this morning and I played back one of the videos where Yemaya was, I could tell and I could feel that the person that read her knew what the fuck she was talking about. That person knew what the fuck they were talking about. Spirit came through and I was like, my whole body was cold. I was like, Esa, that one right there, she fucking knows. And not just that she knows, the gifted person listens. Yo, I hope that Imani is good today. I hope that she is resting. I hope that she's sleeping. I don't think it was the girl with the headphones. It was the girl that you never could see her face. The whole shit, the whole shit was like blurry. The screen was completely blurry. No, it was amazing. Painful, of course, because the truth fucking hurts. The truth that we're forced to see, the reminders. It was the part where the person said, I need you to go back. Yeah, she was blonde. She was a white girl. And I was like, what I said to myself this morning, I'm like, this white girl knows what the fuck she's talking about. This white girl right here knows what the fuck she's talking about. I fucks with her. Because she took Imani on a journey, on a fucking vision quest to 6 years old. What? As soon as she said the words, you're 6, surrounded by barbed wire, I was like, ah, fuck. what? Gifted, beautiful Imani. I've never seen Imani as vulnerable and beautiful as I did yesterday. Never. She wasn't smoking weed. There was nothing fucking with her cognitive. There was nothing blocking and getting in the way. It was her in her purest, truest, realest self. And it was beautiful. It was fucking beautiful. It was if you have a time, like, definitely go back. It's in her, you know how you have you gotta go to like IGTV on the Hood Healers page and there's like 4 videos. Go to the first one. Buenos dias. Buenos dias. Good morning. Yo, that part. I was like, She saved it. It's on the IGTV. Not on her wall, but click IGTV so you can see all the videos. That conversation was incredibly timely because what we are doing right now with this new book that we're reading is we are going back. We're going back in time. And in many ways, we're going back in time to rescue, save, and heal the younger self. Grand Rising. Word sin, Obatala. Word. I was like, messages coming right on time right now for all of us. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. I already feel full. I usually eat more than that. But we're going to start. Because ain't no time like the present. When Laura said, room full of your past selves and look forward with the crowns. Listen. When they said, you are ahead and far behind, I was like, in so many ways, you are ahead, but also behind and trying to catch up. I was like, I think that's what this healing is all about right now. This healing journey is this like catching up to ourselves. It's like we're in exactly the right place at the right time. Let's get ready. Yeah, yo. This morning I was like, I'm glad that she went to sleep when she went to sleep. She's like, I needed a nap. It was like 9 p.m. last night. I don't know how many hours. Listen, Linda. Here we go. Today, we're focusing on our third eye chakra. The third eye chakra is the 6th chakra on Ajna, meaning wisdom, between the brow. The sound is Om. Om. Okay. The color is indigo. The symbol is 2 indigo petals. It rules the sight, the senses, the nervous system, the pituitary gland. The element is space, and the qualities are intuition, wisdom, clarity, and vision. I'm pulling a mudra to go with the third eye, and I picked unity. It's called Trishula Mudra. Trishula Mudra. I'm probably saying that wrong. Let me see, because I like to figure out how to pronounce the things. Trishula. And so the message is about unity. It's about unity, right? And so unification, clarity, and equilibrium. The benefits is that this mudra supports the nervous and endocrine systems, improves mental clarity, activates pituitary gland, awareness of all the senses. Bend the pinky fingers inward to rest on the base of the thumb. Lay the thumbs over the pinky. Extend other fingers straight out. Hold the hands away from the body. So, let's do this. So, unity. Unity. The focus is clarity fills all my senses, leading me to unity with everything. Find your easy. Balance your breath. Take a few rounds, allowing awareness to ease in harmony in the body and mind. Feel the presence of Shiva, the energy of Shiva, the energy of consciousness beyond form. Feel this energy as a pure ray of light. Feel the light pouring into the third eye center just between the brows. Feel the light of Shiva awakening your inner wisdom. Feel the light activating all parts of your brain. Feel right and left sides of the brain coming into perfect harmony. Feel the light of Shiva filling in all your senses. All right? So, let us begin. Let's get this day started. Let's take some deep breaths. Inhale. Maferefun, Chango. The third eye chakra is what we are focusing on as we begin to read this chapter 1. Yesterday we read the intro to It Didn't Start With You. We are focusing on our third eye chakra. We are allowing our intuition to guide us, our ancestral wisdom to protect us. This is the center of our spiritual sight. So we are allowing for ourselves to be clarity. Maferefun, Obatala. Maferefun, Obatala. Right? And so I love this. The third eye is intuition, wisdom, clarity, and vision. We see with this eye. So we're going to be really, while we read this, we're going to be really looking for the answers that we seek. We're staying open, right? We're trusting our intuition. If it gets too hard, you should disconnect and come back and watch this at a later date. Like, give yourself what you need. The third eye, the practices. This energy center is the master chakra in the energy system. Use visioning practices, vision board, and archetypes. Explore sensory expansion to activate the chakra. Use color meditation, guided imagery, and seeing all the details of your life mission to assist in manifesting your dreams. Working with the Ajna chakra brings clarity, wisdom, and helps to integrate all of the elements. Choose any of the indigo mudra cards to assist, which we did with our unity card. We ready? And even if we're not, we're going in. Remember that we have the root chakra card holding us the entire time we read this book. Part 1. It didn't start with you. How inherited family trauma shapes who we are and how to end the cycle, by Mark Wolin. I titled today's meditation Discernment because we, for as much as we want to help each other, we're here to help ourselves. So let's receive information and practice discernment for ourselves. Part 1, The Web of Family Trauma, page 13. Chapter 1, Traumas Lost and Found. Quote, "The past is never dead, it's not even past," end quote. By William Faulkner, Requiem for a Nun. The past is never dead, it's not even past. A well-documented feature of trauma, one familiar to many, is our inability to articulate what happens to us. Not only do we lose our words, but something happens with our memory as well. During a traumatic incident, what time is it? What time is it? I wanted to write it in the margins. Thank you. 8:41. Not only do we lose our words, but something happens with our memory as well. During a traumatic incident, our thought processes can become scattered and disorganized in such a way that we no longer recognize the memories as belonging to the original event. This is when we question, did this really happen? Instead, fragments of memory, dispersed as images, body sensations, and words are stored in our unconscious and can become activated later by anything, even remotely reminiscent of the original experience. Our triggers. Once they are triggered, it is as if an invisible rewind button has been pressed, causing us to reenact aspects of the original trauma in our day-to-day lives. Unconsciously, we could find ourselves reacting to certain people, events, or situations in old, familiar ways that echo the past. Sigmund Freud identified this pattern more than 100 years ago. Traumatic reenactment, or repetition compulsion, as Freud called it, is an attempt of the unconscious to replay what's unresolved so we can get it right. This unconscious drive to relive past events could be one of the mechanisms at work when families repeat unresolved traumas in future generations. Freud's contemporary Carl Jung also believed that what remains unconscious does not dissolve, but rather resurfaces in our lives as fate or fortune. Whatever is not conscious, he said, will be experienced as fate. In other words, we're likely to keep repeating our unconscious patterns until we bring them into the light of awareness. Both Jung and Freud noted that whatever is too difficult to process does not fade away on its own, but rather is stored in our unconscious. Freud and Jung each observed how fragments of previously blocked, suppressed, or repressed life experience would show up in the words, gestures, and behaviors of their patients. For decades to follow, therapists would see such clues as slips of the tongue, accident patterns, or dream images as messengers, shining a light into the unspeakable and unthinkable regions of their clients' lives. Recent advances in imaging technology have allowed researchers to unravel the brain and bodily functions that misfire or break down during overwhelming episodes. Bessel van der Kolk is a Dutch psychiatrist known for his research on post-traumatic stress. He explains that during trauma, the speech center shuts down, as does the medial prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for experiencing the present moment. He describes the speechless terror of trauma as the experience of being at a loss for words, a common recurrence when brain pathways are remembering are hindered during periods of threat or danger. When people relive their traumatic experiences, he says, the frontal lobes become impaired, and as a result, they have trouble thinking and speaking. They no longer are capable of communicating to either themselves or to others precisely what's going on. Still, all is not silent. Words, images, and impulses that fragment following a traumatic event reemerge to form a secret language of our suffering that we carry with us. Nothing is lost. The pieces have just been rerouted. Emerging trends in psychotherapy are now beginning to point beyond the traumas of the individual to include traumatic events in the family and social history as part of the whole picture. Tragedies varying in type and intensity, such as abandonment, suicide, and war, or the early death of a child, parent, or sibling, can send shockwaves of distress cascading from one generation to the next. Recent developments in the fields of cellular biology, neuroscience, epigenetics, and developmental psychology underscore the importance of exploring at least 3 generations of family history in order to understand the mechanism behind patterns of trauma and suffering that repeat. The following story offers a vivid example. When I first met Jesse, he hadn't had a full night's sleep in more than a year. His insomnia was evident in the dark shadows around his eyes, but the blankness of his stare suggested a deeper story. Though only 20, Jesse looked at least 10 years older. He sank onto my sofa as if his legs could no longer bear his weight. Jesse explained that he had been a star athlete and a straight-A student, but that his persistent insomnia had initiated a downward spiral of depression and despair. As a result, he dropped out of college and had to forfeit the baseball scholarship he'd worked so hard to win. He desperately sought help to get his life back on track. Over the past year, he'd been to 3 doctors, 2 psychologists, a sleep clinic, and a naturopathic physician. Not one of them, he related in monotone, was able to offer any real insight to help. Jesse, gazing mostly at the floor as he shared his story, told me he was at the end of his rope. When I asked whether he had any ideas about what might have triggered his insomnia, he shook his head. Sleep had always come easily for Jesse. Then one night, just after his 19th birthday, he woke suddenly at 3:30 a.m. He was freezing, shivering, unable to get warm no matter what he tried. 3 hours and several blankets later, Jesse was still wide awake. Not only was he cold and tired, he was seized by a strange fear he had never experienced before, a fear that something awful could happen if he let himself fall back to sleep. If I go to sleep, I'll never wake up. Every time he felt himself drifting off, the fear would jolt him back into wakefulness. The pattern repeated itself the next night and the night after that. Soon, insomnia became a nightly ordeal. Jesse knew his fear was irrational, yet he felt helpless to put an end to it. I listened closely as Jesse spoke. What stood out for me was one unusual detail. He'd been extremely cold, freezing, he said, just prior to the first episode. I began to explore this with Jesse and asked him if anyone on either side of his family suffered a trauma that involved being cold or being asleep or being 19. Jess revealed that his mother had only recently told him about the tragic death of his father's older brother, an uncle he never knew he had. Uncle Colin was only 19 when he froze to death, checking power lines in a storm just north of Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories of Canada. Tracks in the snow reveal that he had been struggling to hang on. Eventually, he was found face down in a blizzard, having lost consciousness and hypothermia. His death was such a tragic loss that the family never spoke his name again. Now, 3 decades later, Jesse was unconsciously reliving aspects of Colin's death, specifically the terror of letting go into unconsciousness. For Colin, letting go meant death. For Jesse, falling asleep must have felt the same. Making the connection was a turning point for Jesse. Once he grasped that his insomnia had its origin in an event that had occurred 30 years earlier, he finally had an explanation for his fear of falling asleep. The process of healing could now begin. With tools Jesse learned in our work together, which will be detailed later in this book, he was able to disentangle himself from the trauma endured by an uncle he'd never met, but whose terror he had unconsciously taken on as his own. When we take on the pain and trauma of our past as our own. Shadow work, yes. Not only did Jesse feel freed from the heavy fog of insomnia, he gained a deeper sense of connection to his family, present and past. In an attempt to explain stories such as Jesse's, scientists are now able to identify biological markers, evidence that traumas can and do pass down from generation to the next. Rachel Yehuda, professor of psychiatry and neuroscience at Mount Sinai School of Medicine in New York, is one of the world's leading experts in post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, a true pioneer in the field. In numerous studies, Yehuda has examined the neurobiology of PTSD in Holocaust survivors and their children. Her research on cortisol, in particular, the stress hormone that helps our body return to normal after we experience trauma, and its effects on brain function has revolutionized the understanding and treatment of PTSD worldwide. People with PTSD relive feelings and sensations associated with a trauma despite the fact that the trauma occurred in the past. Symptoms include depression, anxiety, numbness, insomnia, nightmares, frightening thoughts, and being easily startled or on edge. Yehuda and her team found that children of Holocaust survivors who had PTSD were born with low cortisol levels, similar to their parents, predisposing them to relive the PTSD symptoms of the previous generation. Her discovery of low cortisol levels in people who experience an acute traumatic event has been controversial, going against the long-held notion that stress is associated with high cortisol levels. Specifically in cases of chronic PTSD, cortisol production can become suppressed, contributing to the low levels measured in both survivors and their children. Yehuda discovered similar low cortisol levels in war veterans, as well as in pregnant mothers who developed PTSD after the World Trade Center attacks, and in their children. Not only did she find that the survivors in her study produced less cortisol, a characteristic they can pass on to their children, she notes that several stress-related psychiatric disorders, including PTSD, chronic pain syndrome, and chronic fatigue syndrome, are associated with low blood levels of cortisol. Interestingly, 50 to 70% of PTSD patients also meet the diagnostic criteria for major depression or another mood or anxiety disorder. Yehuda's research demonstrates that you and I are three times more likely to experience symptoms of PTSD if one of our parents had PTSD, and as a result, we're likely to suffer from depression or anxiety. She believes that this type of generational PTSD is inherited rather than occurring from our being exposed to our parents' stories of their ordeals. I'm going to read that one more time. We are more likely to experience symptoms of PTSD if one of our parents had PTSD, and as a result, we're likely to suffer from depression or anxiety. She believes that this type of generational PTSD is inherited rather than occurring from our being exposed to our parents' stories of their ordeals. Yehuda was one of the first researchers to show how descendants of trauma survivors, carry the physical and emotional symptoms of traumas they have not directly experienced. We did not have to live through enslavement to have inherited the pain of that. We did not have to experience what happened in 1937 in the Dominican Republic when Trujillo ordered the killing of an estimated 30,000 Haitians. We inherited that, right? We may not have experienced a traumatic event for it to be in our DNA. And this is what's crucial in our healing, is the understanding that it is not our fault. And it didn't start with you. This is what we're going to be reminded of and working on and talking about. That was the case with Gretchen. After years of taking antidepressants, attending talk and group therapy sessions, and trying various cognitive approaches to mitigating the effects of stress, her symptoms of depression and anxiety remained unchanged. Gretchen told me she no longer wanted to live. For as long as she could remember, she had struggled with emotions so intense she could barely contain the surges in her body. Gretchen had been admitted several times to a psychiatric hospital where she was diagnosed as bipolar with a severe anxiety disorder. Medication brought her slight relief, but never touched the powerful suicidal urges that lived inside her. As a teenager, she would self-injure by burning herself with the lit end of a cigarette. Now at 39, Gretchen had had enough. Her depression and anxiety, she said, had prevented her from ever marrying and having children. In a surprisingly matter-of-fact tone of voice, she told me that she was planning to commit suicide before her next birthday. Listening to Gretchen, I had the strong sense that there must be significant trauma in her family history. In such cases, I find it essential to pay close attention to the words being spoken for clues to the traumatic event underlying a client's symptoms. When I asked her how she planned to kill herself, Gretchen said that she was going to vaporize herself. As incomprehensible as it might sound to most of us, her plan was literally to leap into a vat of molten steel at the mill where her brother worked. My body will incinerate in seconds, she said, staring directly into my eyes, even before it reaches the bottom. I was struck by her lack of emotion as she spoke. Whatever feeling lay beneath appeared to have been vaulted deep inside. At the same time, the words vaporize and incinerate rattled inside me. Having worked with many children and grandchildren whose families were affected by the Holocaust, I've learned to let their words lead me. I wanted Gretchen to tell me more. I asked if anyone in her family was Jewish or had been involved in the Holocaust. Gretchen started to say no, but then stopped herself and recalled a story about her grandmother. She had been born into a Jewish family in Poland, but converted to Catholicism when she came to the United States in 1946 and married Gretchen's grandfather. 2 years earlier, her grandmother's entire family had perished in the ovens of Auschwitz. They had literally been gassed, engulfed in poisonous vapors, and incinerated. No one in Gretchen's immediate family ever spoke to her grandmother about the war or about the fate of her siblings or her parents. Instead, as is often the case with such extreme trauma, they avoided the subject entirely. Gretchen knew the basic facts of her family history, but had never connected it to her own anxiety and depression. It was clear to me that the words she used and the feelings she described didn't originate with her, but had in fact originated with her grandmother and the family members who lost their lives. As I explained the connection, Gretchen listened intently. Her eyes widened and color rose in her cheeks. I could tell that what I said was resonating. For the first time, Gretchen had an explanation for her suffering that made sense to her. To help her deepen her new understanding, I invited her to imagine standing in her grandmother's shoes. Damn. I'm sorry, hang on a second. Whoa. To deepen her understanding, I invited her to imagine standing in her grandmother's shoes, represented by a pair of foam rubber footprints that I placed on the carpet in the center of my office. I asked her to imagine feeling what her grandmother might have felt after having lost all her loved ones. Taking it even a step further, I asked her if she could literally stand on the footprints as her grandmother and feel her grandmother's feelings in her own body. Gretchen reported sensations of overwhelming loss and grief, aloneness and isolation. She also experienced the profound sense of guilt that many survivors feel, the sense of remaining alive after loved ones have been killed. I'm sorry. She also experienced the profound sense of guilt that many survivors feel, the sense of remaining alive after loved ones have been killed. In order to process trauma It's often helpful for clients to have a direct experience of the feelings and sensations that have been submerged in the body. When Gretchen was able to access these sensations, she realized that her wish to annihilate herself was deeply entwined with her lost family members. She also realized that she had taken on some element of her grandmother's desire to die. As Gretchen absorbed this understanding, seeing the family story in a new light, her body began to soften as if something inside her that had long been coiled up could now relax. As with Jessie, Gretchen's recognition that her trauma lay buried in her family's unspoken history was merely the first step in her healing process. An intellectual understanding by itself is rarely enough for a lasting shift to occur. Often, the awareness needs to be accompanied by a deeply felt, visceral experience. Visceral, family. That's the real shit. The pain, the dark, the shadow. Reliving it. We'll explore further the ways in which healing becomes fully integrated so that the wounds of previous generations can finally be released. I'm here for that, yo. Please and thank you. Ache. An unexpected family inheritance. A boy may have his grandpa's long legs and a girl may have her mother's nose, but Jessie had inherited his uncle's fear of never waking, and Gretchen carried the family's Holocaust history in her depression. Sleeping inside of them were fragments of traumas too great to be resolved in one generation. Sleeping inside each of us are fragments of traumas too great to be resolved in even our generation. When those in our family have experienced unbearable traumas or have suffered with immense guilt or grief, the feelings can be overwhelming and can escalate beyond what they can imagine, can manage, or resolve. It's human nature when pain is too great, people tend to avoid it. There it is. There it is. The pain is too great and we tend to avoid it. Yet when we block the feelings, we unknowingly stunt the necessary healing process that can lead us to a natural release. Sometimes pain submerges until it can find a pathway for expression or resolution. That expression is often found in the generations that follow and can resurface as symptoms that are difficult to explain. For Jessie, the unrelenting cold and shivering did not appear until he reached the age that his Uncle Colin was when he froze to death. For Gretchen, her grandmother's anxious despair and suicidal urges had been with her for as long as she could remember. These feelings became so much a part of her life that no one ever thought to consider that the feelings didn't originate with her. Currently, our society does not provide many options to help people like Jessie and Gretchen who carry remnants of inherited family trauma. Typically, they might consult a doctor, psychologist, or psychiatrist and receive medications, therapy, or some combination of both. But although these avenues might bring some relief, generally they don't provide a complete solution. Not all of us have traumas as dramatic as Gretchen's or Jessie's in our family history. However, events such as the death of a parent or infant, a child given away, the loss of one's home, or even the withdrawal of a mother's attention can all have the effect of collapsing the walls of support and restricting the flow of love in our family. That part. With the origin of these traumas in view, long-standing family patterns can finally be laid to rest. It's important to note that not all effects of trauma are negative. In the next chapter, we'll learn about epigenetic changes, the chemical modifications that occur in our cells as a result of a traumatic event. According to Rachel Yehuda, the purpose of an epigenetic change is to expand the range of ways we respond in stressful situations. the ways we respond to our triggers, right? Which she says is a positive thing. Who would you rather be in a war zone with? Who would you rather be in a war zone with, she asked. Somebody that had previous adversity and knows how to defend themselves, or somebody that has never had to fight for anything? I want a motherfucker who could fight, yo. You better know how to street fight, kickbox, something. Once we understand what biological changes, I love that part. I love that. Who would you rather be in a war zone with? Let me tell you. You better know how to fight. What? Once we understand what biological changes from stress and trauma are meant to do, she says, we can develop a better way of explaining to ourselves what our true capabilities and potentials are. Viewed in this way, the traumas we inherit or experience firsthand can not only create a legacy of distress, but also forge a legacy of strength and resilience that can be felt for generations to come. And that, my loves, is fucking chapter 1, man. What time do we have? That part, yo. We ready, yo. We ready. We ready to do this. Let's breathe. We getting ready to do our stretch. I'm just looking at your comments. I'm working with mustard flower essence. It helps to bring back joy and cheerfulness when sudden gloom descends for no obvious reason. Thank you. Keep your crown right. I think it's incredibly powerful how we are tapping into being our own healers, and this is what breaking general traumas actually means. Absolutely, Maria. I inherited so much trauma and anxiety from my parents. Yup. It's 9:09. This is heavy, but this is necessary, and this is probably some of the best work we're ever gonna do. 9:09, Maferefun, Oya Yansa. 9:09. Oya's like, yeah, y'all ready to let that shit die. We ready. We stay ready. Let's go. Let's get into this stretch, yo. Let's release that. Whatever came up for you, we're going to release that. Because we out here healing ourselves. And let's go. Let's get on our knees. Let's move into child's pose. Let's go. Let's open our hearts. Let's breathe. Get into our mudra, right? Our unity mudra. Because we're doing this healing work together. We are not alone. We're giving thanks for the courage that it takes to go there, to really go there, to sit in our grief, to sit in our shit, to sit in our pain, to sit in our loss, to sit in our disappointment, to sit in our past, to revisit our childhood. It takes courage. It takes courage, man. But we are not alone. We have never been alone, and we do not need to do this alone. As you move through the poses, be thinking about what you need today, right? What do I need today to keep me focused, to keep me strong? Let's move into a cat-cow, right? Come up to downward. Oh, let me take off my socks so I don't slip. Downward dog. Stretch. Press down on our heels. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Let's walk up to our hands. And let's hang here. And our knees touch the ground. Head down. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Let's come up slowly. Let's come up to mountain. Hand in front of heart. Hand in front of heart. Inhale, arms up. And let's reach and extend. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Forward fold. All the way down. Touch the ground. Bend your knees if you need to. Let's come into plank. Left foot back, right foot back. Knees to mat. Come down, head to ground. Half cobra. Full cobra. Downward facing dog. Walk up to your hands. Let's hang here. Hang here. Arms up. Our sun salutation. Hands to heart. Arms up. Let's come down. Let's come up halfway. Let's come to chair. Come down. Left foot back, right foot back, plank, knees to mat, down, half cobra, full cobra, let's come up, downward dog. Let's walk up to our hands. Let's hang here. Let's come up. Let's move into warrior. Spread our legs apart. Feet facing forward, left foot out. Bend your knee over your big toe. Arms up, aligned with your shoulders. And let's take a deep breath. We are strengthening our bodies. We're releasing any trauma, any anxiety, any stress because we are focused. And we are warriors. Somos guerreros. We are kings and queens. We are focused on our intention, on our strength, on our mind. We're connected to our inner wisdom, to that third eye. Let's come up and let's fold forward. Just come up. Bring your right leg out. Bend your knee over your big toe, arms up. Look to the right. We are remembering who the fuck we are every day. When we wake up, when we practice, when we honor our journey, when we heal our trauma. Come up, arms up, and come down. Let's bring our feet together. Let's come up to mountain. Hand to heart. And let's come down to the mat. Release the rope. Left arm on your right knee. Right arm behind your back. For a deeper stretch, look at your shoulder, over your shoulder. Back, legs down, left leg up. Rotate our neck slowly, slowly. Inhale, come forward, drop into this forward fold, this forward bend. Walk your arms out. Come back. Inhale. Exhale. And come up. Let's sit in our mudra, our unity mudra. And let's just move in gratitude, right? For this practice, for the messages that we received in that chapter, for this work that we're doing to heal from and love on those traumas that we inherited. You know, we're in this journey to understand more, to become finders, right? Finders of the truth, so that we can apply it and make these like necessary changes. What we're doing, it's not even for us. It's for the generations after us. Maferefun, eggun. Set your intention for today. My intention is to continue digging, to continue loving on myself and the community that I adore, to continue searching and sharing and building and creating and honoring what I'm here to do. Maferefun, eggun. My intention is to be love in every action, every word, every deed, every person that I meet. Ache. Amen. Namaste. And so it is. Yes, eggun is with us, yo. I feel so held and I feel so loved. Family. That is our practice. May today bring you everything that you desire and deserve. I love you. You are not alone. We're getting through this shit together, and I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for waking up today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Ache, amen, namaste, and so it is. Peace, fam.